confliction between them. So I think we're going to try and work out those issues in between this meeting and the April 6th meeting. So if everyone's okay with that, I think we'll look for a second to this motion to continue.
I'll second.
No, go ahead, you do it.
Okay, I'll second. I'm not voting on it, but
Okay, so motion by Mr. Callen to continue, second by Ms. Crowitz. Can you call the roll, please? I'm sorry, sitting on that case, this case is going to be our 3 regular members and Mr. Smith and Mr. Wooten.
Okay. To continue to April 6th, Mr. Smith,
Yes, to continue.
Mr. Wooten,
Yes, to continue.
Mrs. Curley,
Yes, to continue.
Mr. Callen,
Yes, to continue.
Mr.
hey, Mary.
Hi, son, are you here?
I'm here. Yes.
Son, can you send a link to Jean, please?
Sure. No problem.
All right, Jean, it's coming.
Okay.
I got you here, Jean.
I just soon get off this board if I have to go through this and bother everybody all the time.
No, you're not bothering anybody, Jean.
Hey, Mary,
Hi, Pat, how you doing?
we're hanging in there.
Jean, he's sending you the link.
I'm waiting for it.
He's sending it.
Jean gets on, well, we will have a quorum, so I'll start. I'll let her get through the technical.
Jean, I just sent it, Jean. Sorry about that. I just look up your email. It's sent to you now.
He sent it to you, Jean.
Oh, it didn't come in yet.
All right, give it a minute.
Okay.
Oh, I like the water. Looks pretty.
So we have 4 cases.
You got it, Jean?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay.
So, Son and Floyd, would you sit on the first case?
Yep, sure.
Sounds good.
Yeah. I'll just say good evening, everyone, while we wait for Jean to get her camera running. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to our April 6, 2021 City of Lynn Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. Our first case of the evening is case number 9947. It's continued again. This is the 314 Broadway case. Can you hear me, Jean?
Mr. Chairman, do you want to
I can
accept the
hear you.
minutes?
I think I can hear you.
I got my phone up there, so she can hear you for now, till the thing comes through. Jean, can you hear her? All
Okay, I'm on
It
the
hasn't come
broad.
through yet, Mary.
right, Jean, I'm gonna keep you on my phone right now until that comes through. Oh, somebody's coming through here now.
Okay. It hasn't come through yet.
All right, can everyone hear Jean?
Yes.
Yes, I hear her.
Okay.
Okay, so regarding this case, Broadway, the administrative appeal of a cease and desist order of August 7, 2020 relating to a building permit. Jim, do you want to give us the rundown of what the latest is on this?
So we're hopeful that we're moving in the right direction toward a resolution. At the last council meeting in March, the We were transferred money to the law department to hire an appraiser. We spoke with our chief financial officer, who recommended an appraiser that came highly recommended from the city of Burlington, town of Burlington assessor for commercial property. City Solicitor George Markopoulos and I have a conference call with him scheduled for Thursday, and we have every reason to believe this could be a fairly quick turnaround. So I'm hopeful that we'll have an appraisal and a game plan, whether it can go out to bid, whether we can do quotes, whether it needs to be in the central register, depending on the figure that they have, to be able to let you know what direction the city can legally go to at the next meeting in April.
Okay. You know what? I apologize, everyone. I need to backtrack. I missed some the opening business. Mary, would you call the roll for us, please?
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, motion to grant to continue.
Okay. I just want to do this our opening business first, Pat, if you don't mind.
All right, anything you say.
Go ahead, Mary, if you call the roll.
Mrs. Crowitz,
Present.
Mr. McElwo,
Present.
Mr. Wooten,
Present.
Mr. Smith,
Present.
Mr. Gisono, absent. Mrs. Curley,
Present.
Mr. Calnan,
Present.
Mr. Wood.
Present. And regarding the minutes for the March 16th,
Motion to accept the minute as read.
okay, no one has any corrections or additions to the minutes? Hearing none, I'll accept Mr. Callan's motion. Do I have a second?
Jean, you want a second?
That never came through, Mary.
Son, can you send her another
Sure.
one?
I second it.
Okay, thank you, Flory. So all in favor of approving the minutes for the March 16th meeting, say aye.
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 Aye, okay, the minutes are approved. And so we all heard the report from Attorney Lamanna on the Broadway case, and so if no one has any other questions, we did get a motion to continue.
Motion to continue.
Okay, did anyone have any other questions first? Okay, hearing none, I have a motion to continue. Can I?
Jean, second that, Mr. Wood.
Okay, we have a motion to continue in second. If we can take
Jean.
a voice call, all in favor?
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye, okay. So we have that. Okay, so. Okay, Terry and Danya, would you guys sit on this next case?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, the next case is 3840 Herschel Street, case number 9963. Petitioner is Susan Cresta. And I'll read the motion again. Is to vary the provisions of the City of Lynn zone ordinance to permit the demolition of an existing two-car garage to be replaced with a new, larger two-car garage with greater square footage for storage and, well, this is outdated now, and a second floor. That's not part of the request anymore. So that's where it stands. And now we have some new plans. I believe Matt has those.
Yep. So I had submitted and dropped off plans. Good evening, everyone. Matt Langis, 38 Madison Street, Amesbury, for the record. Susan Cresta is also in attendance tonight and is available for any questions or concerns. The presentation is fairly short, so I just wanted to highlight the key differences from the last presentation. I'm not sure if you're able to pull up the PDF or not.
Hold on 1 second. I'm sorry. Let me just
No problem.
find it. Would you mind just talking? Let me just send it to myself again. I think I saw it on my email. I'll send it to my work email. Sorry about that.
Sure. Okay. So from the front elevation, the side gable that was going over the the storage area has been eliminated and replaced with sort of a lean-to roof that follows the same pitch of the main gable. I believe that this is some of the ideas that we were talking about from the last meeting. So from the front view, no asphalt shingles will be visible from the front. And the windows on the right and the rear elevations were also removed. So these changes are made, obviously, to decrease the appearance of the garage, having a similar aesthetic to the single-family house. Those were really the two key differences from the last presentation to this one that you'll see in just a moment. So I don't have anything else other than that. So I turn it back over to the board for any questions or concerns, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Yeah, first of all, there's no certified plot plan showing where it's going to be on the lot, and by a licensed professional land surveyor. And the other thing, the print is still too small. I've been complaining about that at every meeting. Make the print for the plan as big as a scale plan, so we can read it without a problem. And if it's approved, we went to the records as something that people can read. The most important thing is to get that plot plan, certified plot plan by a professional land surveyor.
So, Mr. Callan, to address a couple of your questions, the land surveyor is Chuck Faya, and that plan was submitted stamped 10/26/2020 and should be in the original packet. The footprint of that has not changed, so that is I haven't
seen that. I can put a stipulation. I have no problem with the granting, but the printing of the size of the buildings and everything, and the certified plot plan. I'd like to put that as two separate acceptance.
So that plot plan there, Matt, it's still the original footprint of the building?
That's correct.
Okay. So there's the plot plan there, Pat.
Yeah, but I mean, where is it? And I haven't seen it at these meetings.
It's in the file.
Well, I put that as a stipulation that's going to be supplied to the board.
We already have it, Pat.
Wait a minute, I haven't seen it, so I'm not. If I don't see it, I'm not going to be supporting it.
Okay, we'll make it a stipulation that it gets sent to you.
That's what I'm saying. Plus the printing is way too small still.
Okay.
Mr. Callan, are you referring to the hard copy that I had dropped off last week, or the PDFs that are showing us?
No, I'm saying I'd like to see the printing of that plan. You got the elevations and everything that you can read. Make it the same size as your scale is. 1 inch equals a foot or whatever you got it. I don't have it right here.
Right. So those drawings that I had dropped off on, I believe it was on Saturday, are a 1/4 inch at a foot. But
listen to me. The printing of the numbers is too small. Maybe you don't understand what I'm talking about. I want to see the printing of the numbers as big as the scale plan, and they're not doing that.
They are small, and it's hard to read them. But, okay, so there's a stipulation that you'll provide those plans within large numbers to Mr. Callahan. Is that good with you, Matt?
Yeah, that's no problem. I can print them out at half scale or just enlarge the text to be the same font as the annotation or the title sheet, so it can be large enough to be clearly visible.
This is the third time. I hope it's the last.
Okay.
That stipulation.
The other problem is that the lettering is not black. The lettering should be black.
Yeah.
So I had dropped off the plan that I printed out was black and white. So the PDF reads a little bit differently because it's the dark color, but the hard copy that I dropped off was black and white.
And I have a question also, and that is,
Sure.
again, because I couldn't see the numbers. I don't know if the overall height of the garage has changed from the first plan to the second plan.
So the first plan was 15 feet to the midpoint of the gable. So we've taken over, I believe it was over 7 feet out of the height. So now it is 15 feet to the peak of the ridge. So that's the upmost part of the roof. That's the furthest point of that gable.
Okay. Okay.
So you're talking about the finished grade up to the top of the ridge is less than 15 feet, or it is 15 feet.
Correct. Yes.
Doesn't exceed that, right?
Correct.
Son, do you have a copy of the letter from Council President Seer?
Oh, yes. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah, a letter of support that came in today from City Council President Terrence Seer. I had a conversation with him too. He said that Ms. Cresta does a great job keeping up her property, and that he thinks this will be a nice addition to the neighborhood. I guess I can read that. As duly elected president of Lynn City Council and Ward 3 City Councilor, I am writing this correspondence to respectfully request that the zoning board approve the above referenced petition to allow for the demolition of an existing 2-story garage located at the rear of the parcel to be replaced by a larger 2-car garage sufficient for accessory storage. I've spoken with Ms. Cresta, and she has made numerous amendments to the originally submitted plans to satisfy concerns expressed by the ZBA. Ms. Cresta fully intends to utilize this garage for storage of 2 vehicles and to store lawn mowers and snow blowers, etc. Current garage, which has fallen into disrepair, is not large enough to store typical household lawn equipment and furniture and the like. Ms. Cresta, through her architect, has made a number of adjustments to the dormer to eliminate concerns that this will be an accessory living structure. The newly prepared plans accomplish this goal while allowing Ms. Cresta the ability to utilize the garage as she wishes with no negative impact to the neighborhood. As such, as the ward council for this neighborhood, I respectfully request the zoning board of appeals to act favorably on this petition this evening. Thank you for your consideration, Darren P. Seer, council president. Is there any other questions or comments from any board members?
Jean, do you have any questions?
No,
Well, Jean's good.
Okay, hearing none, what is the wish of the board?
Make a motion to be granted with the stipulations.
We have a
I
motion
second it.
for the stipulation, and we have a second from who is that? Was that son?
Glory.
Lori, okay, thank you for the motion and a second. Jean, can you follow the roll?
Yes. Mr. Makula,
Yes. Grant.
Grant,
Yes.
is Terry on this case, Rick?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Lori was anonymous. It's Terry and Danye, and then myself, Pat and Jean.
I thought I was on this case originally.
You were on the first,
Yeah.
everybody was here, so it doesn't really matter.
I was on this case originally back in last year.
I know, yeah. I don't think anyone's missed it. I guess we can put. you on
It's
the-
fine. It's fine. I can withdraw it and someone else can make the motion.
Okay, so it's Terry and Danya and Jean, Pat, and myself.
Okay.
Thanks, Lori.
Okay, Mr. Callen made the motion.
Yep. Lori
We have a-
seconded it.
Who did?
I think Lori did, right?
He can't, he's not on the case I got.
I'll second it.
Jean will second it.
Okay.
Mr. Smith,
Yes,
Grant?
Grant.
with stipulations?
Yes.
Mrs. Crowitz, to grant with stipulations?
Yes, to grant with stipulations.
Mrs. Curley, to grant with stipulations?
Yes,
Mr. Callen, to grant with stipulations?
Yes, with stipulations.
Mr. Wood, to grant with stipulations?
Yes, to go.
Okay.
All right, great. It's a unanimous decision then. Congratulations, to the petition.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I just want to confirm that the stipulations are two things: was to print and provide a copy of the certified plot plan, as well as to provide a larger scaled plan so that the text is readable. Are those the two stipulations?
Yeah.
Larger fonts. The fonts has to be large enough.
The fonts, larger fonts. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, congratulations.
And it has to have the seal of a professional land surveyor
Yes,
on it.
I'll provide that as well. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all so much.
You're welcome. Congratulations. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Lori, could you send her another link?
I don't,
okay, so the next case, number 9965. This is 0 Circle Avenue. And Son and Flory, would you sit on this case?
Yes, Mr. President.
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Okay, so case number 9965, I'll read the case again. To vary provisions of the City of Lynn zone ordinance to allow the existing 2,520 square foot building and 4.5 acres of land to be used as a workspace for the staging of unregistered motor vans and similar type vehicles to be put into active delivery pending orders by its customers, and to allow 4.5 acres of the existing 10,383 acres of the lot to be used for the parking of such vehicles. I'm not sure that's correct, that 10,383, but we're familiar with the case. This is this is continued. And Attorney Moore, you want to take the reins here and tell us what's going on?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You hear me all right?
Yes, now I can find.
Very good. Good evening. My name is James Moore. I'm an attorney with the firm of Bradley Moore, Premise and Cuff and Weber at 85 Exchange Street, Lynn, Massachusetts, and I am speaking in favor of the petition. To give you a brief background, the petitioner Perry Linway LLC is the owner of the location, which is one of the 8 parcels that together make up what is commonly known as Gorelick Farms, or for some of us, Westland Creamery. Perry purchased all 8 parcels on January 4th, 2021. A copy of that deed was submitted with the application. The location identified on Exhibit A of the deed as Tract 2 and is shown on as Lot 73 of the Land Court Plan 11215M, also submitted with the application. Perry seeks relief from the Lynn zoning ordinance to allow an existing 2,520 square foot building and 4.5 acres of the Lot 73 to be used as workspace for the staging.
I'm on, Mary.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
For the staging, workspace for the staging and parking of new unregistered motor vans and similar type vehicles to be put into active delivery pending orders by its customers. Before Perry purchased Gorelick Farms, the City of Lynn, at the request of Perry and working with city officials, amended the Lynn zoning ordinance by extending the Waterfront 3 district to include all of Gorelick Farms and to allow for the use of the property for something other than a dairy manufacturing facility. Such uses adopted by the city were consistent with the uses allowed in both the Waterfront 1 and the Waterfront 3 districts. In working with the city on this zoning amendment, Perry explained its goal as a large-scale commercial development, consistent with the Lynn Municipal Harbor Plan and the proposed developments on the harbor side of the Lynnway, moving towards the location from the direction of the Saugus River. The project will be named Lynnway Park. Perry was particularly impressed with the Lynn zoning ordinance allowing for the zoning amendment of a maximum floor area ratio of up to 2.8, which would allow the development of up to 1,268,000 square feet on the Circle Avenue parcel, which is our location today. And with this petition, and if you include the parcels out front, it would support 2,124,000 square feet of development. Perry discussed with the city that a large development was the reason for the purchase. It would need to find short-term tenants to help defer a portion of the carrying costs. Predicting who those tenants would be and what their needs would be was like the future. That is very hard to predict. For example, when the zoning amendment was passed by the city of Lynn in February of 2020, it had been 2 years since Ferry first approached the city with his interest in the property, and the word pandemic was just being introduced into the public discussion without any hint of how this would affect the future, and in particular, the future of large-scale real estate developments. This petition for a variance will allow Perry to enter into a short-term lease of 1 year, consistent with Perry's discussions with the city officials prior to the purchase and over the last few weeks. There may be requests from the tenant for an extension of that lease. Perry is aware of the request from Councilor Hogan and that any variance allowed have a 1 year time limit. While not in favor of such a short time limit, if the board grants the variance with a time limit, Perry would comply, but reserves its right to return to the board prior to the expiration of a time limit and request consideration of additional time. The tenant's use of the property is best described as follows. The tenant will store vehicles parked on the property. All of the vehicles are new. Once the customer requests that a vehicle be made ready for service, the tenant will inspect the vehicle, jump start the vehicle if needed with a portable jump box or tow truck as needed, prep the vehicle by taking plastic off any seats, take stickers off windshields, no chemicals are used, fill tires with air if needed with a portable air machine, deliver the vehicle to the customer. At no point will the tenant do any body work or assemble. Occasionally a vehicle will need a tightening of bolts inside the vehicle for the shelving, and hand tools will be used. The tenant will not stock or use any lubricants. The vehicles make one trip to the location on the back of a large truck carrier and one trip to exit the location as an operating vehicle. The result is a minimum of additional traffic. The tenant estimates that it will be 8 jobs created to start, moving to 15 to 20 jobs when business peaks. The hours of operation will be 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily, including weekends, as occasionally they may be a request for a vehicle over the weekend that they would have to accommodate. It would be highly unusual to receive vehicles on the weekend. If overhead lights are used in the parking area, they will be turned off at the close of business. The tenant will have security when not on the site. The tenant will need a small metallic sign affixed to the fence so the drivers will know where to deliver. It is worth pointing out that this portion of the property was used for the storage of vehicles for use of both Gorelick and Westland Creamery for at least 30 years prior to taking title to the property. It is respectfully submitted that the requested zoning relief can be granted without any adverse impact on the area in which the use is situated. Thank you for your time. I will answer any questions you might have. In addition, there's an executive Vice President from Perry who will also speak and would be happy to answer any questions for the board.
Thank you, Attorney Moore. Just to mention that we have letters. We have a letter from Ward 6 Councilor Fred Hogan. And I believe we also have a letter from Council President Sear. And there is still a letter on file from EDIC Director Jim Cowdell. And all are in favor. And as you stated, Attorney Moore, everyone seems to be in agreement that all the city players that have asked our board to give the variance for 1 year with the stipulation that it's granted for 1 year. So I think, does anyone want to hear the letters read? I mean, there is a general consensus. I mean, it's a clear consensus that, you know, the city, the council and the EDIC director are asking us to support this variance with the stipulation of 1 year. Does anyone have any comment on that?
I've seen the letter and I'm totally fine with it. Just quick question to Attorney Moore is, will the vehicle be visible to the streets, to the highway pretty much?
I believe it's too far back in the rear. The original buildings for the Gorelick and Westland front on the Linway.
Yeah.
And this is to the rear.
Okay. All right. Understood. Yeah. No, Mr. Chairman, I have no question.
Lori, I had some of the same concerns you did, although I'm not voting on this case. I feel like I need to bring up a couple of things. One was, is it visible from any street or from any place? And could we put a stipulation down that if it does become visible, that we have the right to ask for screening of some sort? Maybe it's landscape screening?
It says it's going to be all the way in the back, so it's impossible for you to see it on Linway.
Okay.
The only road will be Linway.
I was trying to see from the plan where it's located.
Right.
Because you can't drive on the property.
Right. It's in the back, so you won't be able to see it.
Okay. So then the second thing, I was just triggered by the mention of if any lighting is installed. Can we put a stipulation on there that if any lighting is installed, that they be strictly downlights and they have no light emitting going up, which causes light pollution?
Does that sound okay, Attorney Moore?
Mr. Chairman, I think what maybe she's talking about offensive lighting. Is that true?
Well,
But the lighting, any lighting to shine down.
I think Attorney Moore addressed it. He said lights will be, you said they'll be shut off at night?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, but
Okay.
no offensive,
He said
no offensive lighting.
No offensive lighting, okay.
I think this is Mr. Chairman, I think this is a good deal for the city of Lynn.
I agree.
And they only want it 1 year. So, you know, it leaves a lot of wiggle room there. And, you know, they're willing to put a lot of money into that site. And I think that's a good deal for the city.
I agree, and as Attorney Moore said, that you know, it's their right to come back and ask for an extension if you know, as the anniversary approaches, they can always come back.
All right.
So I guess you know, at this point, that has been. I'm sorry I didn't designate that, but as the portion speaking in favor of the petition. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in favor of the petition? Anyone else that wants to speak in favor of the petition? I suppose, you know, we should observe the protocol and give people a minute or so to call in if anyone wants to. So we'll start that period now. And if any other members have any other questions, we could hear those too. Jim, looking at the picture, it seems surprising to me that they've got wastewater treatment, you should call it a facility there, is not fenced off. Is that something they'll probably do? When you look at it at ground level, it's like, you know, it looks so much more, I don't know, graphic from above.
I could comment on this. I'm sorry. This is Bob Maloney with A.W. Perry.
Hi, Bob.
Hi. Thank you, everybody, for your time. So as you can see from that photo right there, there is a fence around the entire yard and a main gate, which will be secured whenever vehicles are not passing through, and at the end of the day and overnight. And then to view the wastewater treatment plant from the air, there is a fence that runs between that white building, the first photo that you saw, and the tank that is now out of commission. So to get to those tanks and facilities behind that white building is it can't be done without going through that white building. You see, there's a fence off to the left and a fence off to the right. Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah,
just to have the whole space fenced off.
Yeah.
Okay, hearing no other comments in favor, not getting any phone calls, I'll open the hearing to anyone in opposition to the petition. So if there's anyone in opposition, we have no letters. Or
Mr. Wood? Mr. Wood,
Yes.
there are letters for Linwood that have to be read.
For-
From Circle Ave, from Councilor Seer.
Yes, we reviewed those and we agreed that they're all, they're all in favor of
Okay.
the 1-year variance. So I chose not to read them. If anyone
Okay.
wants to read them, I can, but they're all in agreement. And, that we give them a 1-year variance, and so I didn't see the need to read them all. If anyone wants me to, I can. I think it's agreed that they're all in favor of giving the variance. So, the meeting is open for any opposition. We'll hold on for another minute. Anyone who wants to call in opposition, the hearing's now open for that. We appreciate having you here, Bob. So,
Motion to grant with stipulations.
yeah, we're still just waiting to see if anyone wants to call in opposition.
I thought you closed up part of it.
No, not yet. We're gonna give them another minute or so.
All right.
Close the, in favor.
How did that appear? Come out. I'm sorry. It's just like saying something. I'm sorry. Do that, I'll just deny. You buy something, and I want people who want to.
Okay, hearing getting no attempts to reach us, for anyone to speak in opposition, I will close the hearing at this point for anyone in opposition. And what are the wishes of the board?
Motion to grant with stipulation.
And the stipulation is, for the 1 year.
Yeah.
Limit to the variance, okay? And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion made to grant with the stipulation that the variance has a 1 year limit to it, and it's seconded by Mrs. Curley. Mary, would you call the roll?
What is the stipulation? What is the stipulation?
The stipulation is that there is a 1 year limit to the variance. And
Fine.
as Attorney Moore said, that, that we come back and we petition for an extension if they would like. But,
Thank you.
Mary, Son and Flory are sitting on this case, so if you call the roll.
Mr. Makua,
Yes, to grant.
Mr.
With the-
Wooten. Oh, go ahead.
With the stipulation.
Okay. And we can revisit it back in a year, correct?
That's
If they
Okay.
wish.
if they wish to.
If they wish. Okay, Mr. Wooten,
Yes, to grant. With stipulations.
with stipulations. Mrs. Curley with
Uh.
stipulations.
Yes, to grant.
Mr. Callen with the stipulations to grant.
Yes, to grant with stipulations.
Mr. Wood to grant with the stipulations.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mr. Perry. Thanks, Attorney Moore. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay.
Thank the board for their time.
You're
Yep.
welcome. Good
Thank
luck
you very
with
much.
the
Take care. Thank you.
Thanks.
So our next case is case number 9966. This is 0 Linwood Road. This is petitioner is Gary Funari, and the attorney is Sam Vitale, to vary the provisions of the City of Lynn zoning ordinance to allow construction of a two-family dwelling on a lot containing 10,356 square feet, less than the required area, and frontage of 105 feet in the R2 General Residence District. Sam, do you want to present?
Yes,
Attorney
thank
Vitale?
you. Thank you. With me is Gary Funari, the petitioner. As the chairman indicated, this is a request for the board to allow the construction of a two-family dwelling in a general residence district in which a two-family dwelling is a permitted use. The reason we're before the board is that the lot of irregular shape and uneven topography with much ledge is about 1,800 square feet short of 12,000 square feet, which is the current requirement for a two-family dwelling. 2 doors down, I believe at number 42, Linwood, there's a two-family on 7,400 square feet, and the area is one in which there are singles and two-family dwellings. Mr. Fenari's been before the board many times, and with the board's assistance, has built new homes on President Street. I asked them to make a list: President, Weston, Joyce, Baldwin, Chestnut, Cherry, Glenwood, Sanders, Summers, South, Oakwood, Sheridan, to list some of the homes that were constructed by Gary in the city of Lynn, in which he's made a substantial investment. What he seeks here is to put up a two-family dwelling, a duplex style. I think we had delivered to the members the plan. Each member should have the plan of the proposed duplex, each with a two-car garage, interior parking, each with 2 bedrooms. It would be a modern, energy-efficient constructed home. The site is a difficult one because of the topography and the unusual shape of the lot. And with respect to that, if you recall, at the last meeting when we originally brought this forward, there was an expression of concern about what I would call the mountain that's behind us, that is known as Zero Gayron Way. I provided an aerial photograph, I think, that shows that not only that's the picture you're showing now shows the large outcropping of ledge at the rear, which extends over to Gayron Way, which is not an improved public way. The person who expressed concern is about 300 feet away at a much steeper grade, approximately 80 feet higher than we are. But I thought that the concern that was expressed was a legitimate concern, and because of that, we hired a geologist. And the geologist did a study with respect to the neighboring properties. We don't intend to do blasting. We intend to chip away the rock. And our concern was the immediate impact on the closest abutting property, which is number 9, Linwood, and the other abutting properties that were in close proximity. The geologist did his report with respect to not only suggesting methods of chipping of the rock, but how one could measure the potential impact. And they used something called the Caltrans construction table. And I learned a little bit about geology, but essentially I think it can be reduced to this. There's an abbreviation called PPV, which is peak particle velocity. And I think essentially what the geologist said is that to have any impact would be negligible on the adjoining parcels, because it would have to not only travel laterally, but vertically. In other words, it has to extend all the way along, up the mountain, and up even further to this parcel that is over on Bellevue, almost 300 feet away. That parcel on Bellevue is a two-family dwelling on a 4,500 square foot lot with 45 feet of frontage. It's a conventional two-family dwelling. And so the geologist did the report. We shared the report with the abutter that had a concern. We shared with him that's the photograph, the aerial. You see that green area at the top on the other side of the mountain. Not the bear went over the other side of the mountain, because what he saw was the other side of the mountain. There's that big empty green space is where we propose to put the house in close proximity to the Linwood Street side, because of the difficulties the topography presents with respect to the construction of any dwelling. Let me be clear about one thing. This isn't about the construction of a dwelling at 0 Linwood. This is about the construction of a two-family dwelling at 0 Linwood, because the lot is of requisite size, has requisite frontage, and a single-family dwelling can go there all right. The difference is this: and I think the board should consider this, that Mr. Fenari undertook an expense with the geologist and is willing to follow those recommendations or any others that the board may suggest to ensure that there is no negative impact not only on 9 Linwood, but on any of the adjoining properties. But to build a single-family home, he doesn't require an approval from the Board of Appeals. There are no stipulations or conditions that are going to be attached on it other than that plan conforms to the dimensional regulations of the city of Lynn. That plan, with respect to the size of the building, whether it's a 2-family or a single-family, the difference is, from the board's perspective, I would suggest the number of bedrooms, the conditions of the construction, the size of the dwelling. And so I think there is a trade-off here. I think the trade-off is for 1,800 square feet, less than 12,000, if a 2-family is permitted, it can be constructed with whatever safeguards or stipulations that the abutter wants, that the board wants. And that's a decision obviously for the board to make. We don't believe that the concern about that mountain is one that adversely affects the mountain or the neighboring properties. The geologist's concern was about chipping of rock having any impact on adjoining homes, and he concluded it would be negligible or non-existent. And he also suggested methods to the builder to ensure that not only would it be undertaken that way and safety-wise for the people constructing it, but also for the impact of on any abutting homes. So the 2-family is consistent with the character of the area. 2 doors down is a 2-family duplex on 7,000 square feet. The adjoining property at 300 feet away is a 2-family on a 4,500 square foot lot. You can see this is an irregular lot. There's a plan that goes back to 1916, and this lot has existed since then as a lot with frontage on an improved public way, which is Linwood Road. Gayron Way that's shown at the rear is not an improved public way in that portion. It is not a public way to which there is access to the properties that are abutting at the rear. And so in terms of any impact on dwellings, we think the geologist's report echoes what we thought at the outset, but now we've had confirmed by a professional that there'd be no impact on the neighboring homes if the method used is the one that the geologist proposes, which is using a chipping according to the attachments that were made with his report on how to best do it. With respect to the dwelling, we think it's a conventional modern 2-family. You have I propose, I want to just hold up if we can. Gary can show, this is the plan that you saw with respect to the site. And then we given, I think everybody, we had delivered the set of working drawings of the plan by Mr. Wyckoff, who's designed many homes in the city of Lynn and worked with Gary before, that shows a 2-family dwelling, each with 2 bedrooms. So I think that at this point, the question is with respect to the advantages and disadvantages, we would suggest that the best use of this site is consistent with what the city zoning allows, which is a 2-family dwelling, that the 2-family dwelling would be modern, that it would be energy efficient, that it would fit and blend in with the neighborhood. It would provide additional housing in an area in a city that needs it, with a proven developer who's built many, many other homes here in the city of Lynn, many of which had the assistance of the Board of Appeals. And we're hoping now that the Board of Appeals will take a look at this proposal and conclude that a 2-family dwelling can be built safely, appropriately, and fits the character of this neighborhood. I'd be glad to answer questions that any member may have about the proposal.
The one question I have is that we received a revised plan, a revised report today from the geologist.
Because the street number was incorrect. It said 131 and it's really 135 was the abutters. The abutter,
it would have been nice if he had circled that.
Excuse me. The abutter owns 133 and 135 Bellevue, which is 300 and something feet away. And we wanted to make it clear that we certainly had in mind impact on dwellings. If you read the report carefully, you'll see that the geologist talked about what are the impact on residences. And I think that the concern was that somehow we had overlooked
That wasn't my question. That's not my question, Sam.
Yeah.
My question was that he sent out a revised report and I had no idea what was revised. That's my question. You answered
the answer that I stated at the outset. The address of 131 was corrected to say 133.
Right.
That's the only change.
Okay.
Because we understood that there still was some concern about the mountain at the rear, which is, as I indicated, higher in elevation, more distant than the adjoining residences, and what we had given for parameters was, would there be any impact on neighboring homes? And you can see that I think the concern is that mountain of rock that is behind Linwood, and between behind that mountain of rock is a paper street, and beyond that are residences that front on Bellevue. There are, in closer proximity, the property at number 9 Linwood and the properties going up the other end of the street. And the geologist's concern was impact on existing dwellings. And so when we saw that there was a mistake in the listing of the number of the street, that I think as the abutter who expressed a concern, we pointed that out to him and he corrected that. That's the only change in the report. The substance of the report is still the same, the conclusion is still the same, and the recommendations are still the same.
Well, this geological report,
yes,
they say it was based on aerial photos, discussion with the client, who was Mr. Fenari, online information, and anything the city might know. That to me is not a geological report. I thought somebody would go out there and wait a minute. I thought somebody would go out there and poke around. And this, to me, I could do this.
I don't think so, and not be a professional and have it pass muster. My understanding is that the geologist used a chart that is commonly accepted in the trade, which he referenced as an attachment, which has the formulas that support his professional opinion as to the calculations and the conclusion that he reached. He's not a layman. He signed it with his engineering significant. I think he's a professional engineer. He also gave you the methodology with the actual formulas. That Caltrain formula is one used in the trade when constructing on bedrock ledges. He also did an analysis of the soil conditions. He talked about the methodology, not only of the mechanisms that should be used to chip the rock, but suggestions and further ways to enhance the protections that were afforded. This isn't a layperson's, this is an expert opinion. This is a person who is trained in this field, who signed it that way with his colleague, who put their conclusions and their professional stamp on the report and supported the report with the formulas that they used to derive the conclusions that they reached. So I would suggest to you that it isn't a curbside opinion. It was one based upon accepted practice in the trades with respect to construction, dealing with sites that had ledge or bedrock.
All right. So Sam.
He also put another little notation in there that if any information that they were given was incorrect, that they had no responsibility.
Right. So Sam.
Once again, the use of the report was for Mr. Fenari and his choices. You could denigrate the report, but I think at the end of the day, I don't think there's any basis to question its conclusion, unless you have a lay opinion that says you choose not to follow the professional opinion. The reality is that a man who is a professional engineer, who is in this business, who works for a company called GZA that does this up and down. They're located in Amesbury and other places that does this up and down the North Shore and within the Commonwealth. He arrived at this conclusion based upon using best management practices, using the professional standards that govern engineering when they do this. So you might disagree with his conclusions, but his conclusions are based upon, and he backed it up with, the actual calculations and formulas that he used. It is a professional opinion.
So Sam, this is Richard. I'm on 33. I'm the owner of the 33 Property Street. Thank you for going through this. First of all, I've not received any report of any sort from the geologist. And second of all,
excuse me. This is Richard. Identify yourself again, please.
This is Richard Steffer, the owner of 33 Forest Street.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So I have not received any report for this geological studies. And second of all, based off on the information given, I seem not to agree with what the geologist is saying from an engineering standpoint, because there's no way they can prep that land without affecting my property.
What is your address, sir?
33 Forest Street. It's right next to it.
33 Forest Street.
Yeah,
yes,
they looked at
the single family.
They considered that they looked at in their original survey were 11 dwellings, 8, 9, 11, 14 Linwood, 25, 26, 30, 33, 34 Forest, 2023, and 127 Grove Street. But we focused on, there was an abutter who had expressed concern at the last meeting who lives on Bellevue. And concern was the mountain, that huge rock at the rear. But the survey, and I'll say this again, the survey is part of our effort to ensure that the property is developed in a professional and consistent manner.
Okay.
Not to ensure that the property is developed or not. The property is going to be developed.
Okay. Okay.
Whether it's going to be developed as a 2-family or a 1-family, and whether the 2-family is going to be subject to some controls and regulation, or whether the 1-family is going to be built as a matter of right. That's the ultimate decision.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. What policies are being put in place to ensure that if after the construction, any damage is made to the properties surrounding that location, will be taken care of? What policies are being put in place? Fine, you've decided to go
to do a survey pre and post, but that's only subject to, obviously, if we don't have to do the survey, we're not going to do the survey. But if that were a condition that there be a survey of adjoining properties, it's not unusual when there is blasting that the state fire marshal who governs blasting, and understanding that this project has no blasting, if it did have blasting, it would not be unusual for the state fire marshal and the fire department to require 2 things: the posting of a bond, and also that there be what's called pre-blast surveys and then post-blast. There's no blasting. What we then did is had a geologist look at what the impact may or may not be on adjoining properties and make suggestions to us. But I would suggest to you that the requirement to do so at this point is voluntary by Mr. Fenari, should he choose to do it. There is no real requirement for him to do it. And certainly if he builds a single family home, which he has an absolute right to do, then he may choose not to do it. What I'm suggesting is that that was one of, we thought, a fair indication of his sincerity about not only protecting the home in the immediate area, but in the outlying areas. And so we did have, notwithstanding what some people's view of the study is, we did have them look at adjoining properties. We had them look at one specific property. So we've already had that done. But whether we have them look at others, including the one that you reside at, that's going to be a function of whether we get permission to build a 2-family or not.
So when can I get a copy of that report?
That report was made available to the abutter who made himself known. It's a public document that's sitting in City Hall, and they had it up there on the screen. I'd be glad to give it to you. But what I'm saying to you is that the original concern we had was what's called zero gay runway. That's the big rock behind the parcel. And then the other concerns were the immediate properties left and right. One at 9 Linwood and then extending up Linwood, because not only is there, does the report address what's called vertical vibration, it deals with what's called lateral. And so the person who expressed concern, there's a huge difference in elevation between the site on Linwood and that adjoining property. But as far as looking at other properties, we considered other properties, and I'm certain Mr. Fenari would be glad if he was required to consider the address that you're talking about. But I would suggest to you that we're not going to sit here and do surveys up and down the street for a home that we're not going to get permission to build.
All right, excuse me, I just want to take hold of the meeting a little bit here. We're getting a little astray now. When we opened this section, Attorney Vitale, you're speaking in favor, obviously, and Steve, I'm not sure if you're in favor. It sounds like you're just making inquiries, but right now is the portion of the hearing where people are asked to speak if they want to in favor of this petition. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in favor?
I have a few more questions.
Okay.
Mr. Fenari, what does it mean when you say you're a trustee? Are you an owner under option?
Oh, no, no, I'm the actual 100% trustee of the trust. I'm the owner of the trust.
Urban Vest is the entity he does business in.
Well, who owns the property?
He does.
He owns the property.
Absolutely. We submitted the deed with the application.
For some unknown reason, I was under the impression that the people own number 9, which is only going to be 12 feet away. Did they own it? Those two gentlemen own all that property.
They sold that lot to Mr. Fenari. They
Thank you.
out the lot with the garage to keep. And then they sold the house and the garage to someone else. And they sold Mr. Ferrari that lot. He owned the lot. People who
thank you.
At number 9 sold the property.
Thank you. That answered that.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a couple of comments.
Sure, Mr. Keller.
It's a terrible layout. There's only a 12-foot setback. There's 4 cars parked underneath. And there's going to be a
spreadsheet.
That's correct. It's
and there's going to be an open space in a front 12 feet setback. And we double dog know what's going to happen there. People are going to park in the front and they're going to be hanging out over the sidewalk and the curb. And people are going to have to walk in the street to get by that lot. If you look to the house to the left, they have a garage that's set way back and they have parking in front of the garage. And that's something that there should be. This house should go at least 8 to 10 feet more to the rear to be for public safety in that area right there.
Well, to the extent that
I could never agree with that, and I will not vote for that the way it's laid out.
Well, let me address the parking. First of all, for a 2-family dwelling, the ordinance requires 3 spaces. This property has 4. Secondly, they're all enclosed spaces. They're within the garage. Thirdly, with respect to the front setback is in excess of what is required for a front setback. Whether people will park in front of the home, I can't predict, but there are 4 garage spaces. As far as moving it back, the rear yard requirement is 15 feet, Mr. Callen. We're showing almost 23 feet.
I understand all about that. I'm talking about the front.
Well, I'm understanding, but to have more room at the front, one would have to move the building to the back.
Exactly. I know that. I've been doing it in building all my life.
We could go back maybe 7 feet, assuming that the soil conditions which result in the hardship about any lot or anything being built on this lot would allow us to extend to the rear. But there's clearly 23 feet approximately, so it could go 7 feet further back if, in fact, the soil conditions and the topography allow. I'm not a builder. You're more familiar than I, but I know I talked with Mr. Wyckoff about setting the building back. I talked with Mr. Reed about setting it back so there would be sufficient access to the roadway that was safe. The persons backing out could see, or pulling in could see to the left and to the right. That's why the dwelling was placed where it is. It could be moved further back if the topography and the soil conditions allowed. But
when you say, Mr. Vitale, when you say it could be further moved back, what numbers are you talking about?
Again, I don't know
how far back?
I'm just saying to you that as far as dimensionally, it could go back so that there still would be a 15-foot rear yard. But that would be if we're doing this dwelling on this lot as a two-family with the requirement to have 3 spaces, we're showing 4. For a single-family dwelling, as you well know, the requirement's only going to be 2 spaces, and they can be stacked spaces. The dwelling size may remain the same, whether it would be a 2-car or a 3-car garage, that remains to be seen. But the site, because of the unique shape and because of the unique topography with that mountain of ledge at the rear, doesn't give much room to maneuver and put a footprint of a building. And that's what I tried to say at the outset. These are legitimate considerations that the board can have and put stipulations in that relate to a 2-family dwelling. So if we're talking about putting a 2-family dwelling and moving it back, if it's a physical possibility to not encroach beyond where we would be in violation of the 15-foot rear yard, that's something that could be achieved and gain more space at the front. Our goal was to do the following: to satisfy the requirements of the zone ordinance. Those requirements relate to number of spaces. Number is 3, we've got 4. Secondly is the design standards for a space, 9 by 18. So we calculated the length of the garage, the length of where we set the setback, and we have sufficient, we think, safe backup space. That's not to say we couldn't perhaps gain more if we moved the building back, but it was not done in a vacuum. It was done with those considerations in mind. And the other part of this is we did it to try to keep the building as close to Linwood and as far away as from that mountain at the rear. So there are always trade-offs involved. But with respect to the placement of the dwelling, it was done to satisfy the dimensional requirements, to satisfy the parking number, and to be done given the considerations that the soil conditions, the topography, and the shape of the lot present as a challenge to anybody building that building.
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
I'm not gonna repeat myself. If that building is not pushed back at least to the 22 feet of frontage, so for public safety, so people don't have to walk out in the street and duck the traffic coming by, I can have, this is public safety, number 1. And I would never vote in favor of something like this. So I'm not going to keep talking about it. The way it's laid out, I'm not for it.
Thanks, Mr. Callen. That's an excellent point.
I wanted to bring up one more point too, because Vitale mentioned that this was an engineer's stamped letter. The letter that I have is not stamped. It's signed by the engineer, but it's not stamped.
I'm certain the engineer would be glad to provide you with a stamped copy. I don't think he's holding himself out as a professional engineer if he's not. So
you don't have to, you can sign a letter and not stamp it, Sam. I'm just telling you, when you're represented this as a stamped letter. It is not a stamped letter.
I'm not in favor of it.
I think the initials after his name are PE, professional engineer.
Yes, an engineer signed it, but he did not stamp it.
Engineer in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
I'm sorry, Sam. I'm sorry.
It looks like this whole thing is being forced on us. I completely do not agree to this whole thing. The engineering report doesn't sound convincing to me, because there's no way it cannot affect the properties that are close by. And so I think we should push for a review, or we should push for this whole thing not to happen.
Thank you, Sifa.
Can I speak? My name is Joseph Wilson. I live at 30 Forest Street.
Joe, can I ask you something? Are you speaking in favor? Because the hearing is for speaking in favor right now. Sifa was out of turn there.
I have another question, Mr. Woods.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Fenari, am I correct in saying that you told me that you would be chipping 15 feet into that mountain?
No, I didn't say I was going into the mountain at all. I think what I said was that to look at the stakes, they don't actually go into the mountain at all.
Oh, I looked at the stakes, but you and I had a conversation on the phone, and I wrote down every word you said to me, and you said you were chipping 15 feet into that mountain.
Oh, no, I meant 15 feet from the side, from the wall to where the.
No, you never said that. You never said that to me at all.
Well, the plan speaks for itself.
Yeah,
The plan shows the dimensions, and at the end of the day, again, if we want to be limited and governed by the plan, that's a choice the board can make. But the plan we submitted, again, was done with respect to the existing requirements of the zone ordinance. And that's why, at the end of the day, it isn't what somebody said, it's what the report or the documentation shows. And it isn't somebody's understanding or misunderstanding, it's the facts. And the facts are that the house would be set where the plan showed and where the stakes were put. So a person without the plan could walk up there and see the exact dimensions of the house and where it's going to be.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Okay, John, yes, please.
Attorney Vitale, does Mr. Funari intend to use the proposed methods of construction as recommended by the geologist?
Am I going to use the methods from the geologist?
Well, if he has a two-family dwelling, the answer would be, I think the geologist recommended that, yes.
I would absolutely go.
That's why one of the reasons we asked to get a professional opinion, not a lay opinion, and to get it from people who use what we took to be the methodology that is used in constructing on sites like this from people who are experienced in doing it. So that they did make some suggestions with respect to how to face the equipment, when to do it, various mechanisms that they talked about that were recommendations that are within that report. And so I think Gary can speak for himself, but if that's again, the geologist's recommendations to build a two-family dwelling, then he'll be bound by those.
Okay, if there's no more comments from the board and there are no one that would like to speak in favor, I'll close the hearing for those wishing to speak in favor and open the hearing for anyone that wishes to speak in opposition. There's a gentleman here that wanted to speak. Is that?
I wanted to speak.
Okay, and could you give your name and address, please?
My name is Joseph Wilson at 30 Forest Street, diagonally across from the property.
Thank you, Joe.
I had a question about how they're going to remove, I mean, it seems to be debatable whether they're going to remove part of the rock or not. And if they did so, would there be some kind of vibration that might interfere with foundations or the piping in the street?
We hired a professional geologist whose report took into account the proximity of residences. And I think I read to you when they did their initial survey, they spoke about buildings at 8, 9, 11, 14 Linwood, 25, 26, 30, 33, and 34 Forest, 123 and 127 Grove Street. That's the universe that they were looking at. We understood that there was a concern by the owner of that huge mountain of ledge at the rear that is known as Zero Gay Ron Way. But with respect to the report, we had no indication that anybody at any other address had a concern, but we gave the report to the abutter that we knew about. and we would be prepared to share it with others. What we're doing is chipping away at the ledge that is in the topsoil on this irregularly shaped lot. We did a survey with the geologist to place the house in what we thought was the best location on that lot, but we also asked if we did this method known as chipping, what would be the impact? And they ultimately concluded there'd be little or negligible. They were most concerned about the property at number 9, Linwood, because it's within 15 feet. But they did have, and they did consider other addresses. And so and part of what they, I think, explained, and you don't have the benefit of the report, is that the vibrations, what they call this peak particle vibration, extends along vertically and horizontally in terms of elevation. So they considered both the distance, the height, and the proximity of other sites to this. And they started inward with the closest properties. And then as it extends out, becomes more and more less negligible. There is a professional table that is used in the construction trade, which they attach to their report, called this Caltrans construction. And attached to the report is that formula that they used. And they went down and ultimately said, these are the criteria used within the industry, and that what would be done would be below what would be of a concern based on the generally accepted formula used in the industry. But that report, I'm sorry if you hadn't seen it, but we didn't know who else had inquired, but it's a report that can be shared.
Well, if I may ask something, would the lateral horizontal vibration extend across the street, which is only a few feet? Wouldn't that be considered?
I'm not the engineer, all right? I can
Well,
only,
that's something should know.
the conclusion was it would be negligible on the closest property, any impact. That was
Well, that's the closest property, but that's not the only property. There should be some more investigation into whether it will affect houses across the street that are only a few feet away.
Survey is, but let's cut to the chase. There's going to be no further inquiry if this is a single-family home. And I want everybody to understand, a single-family home can be built there tomorrow.
Well, you're applying for a variance because you're not far enough away from some of the other properties.
If I can just make a point of clarification, Joe, he's applying
the zone ordinance, and we certainly do.
He has, by right, he can build a one-family there.
So there's no requirement for any approvals to build a single-family home on this lot.
Thank you, Sam. Joe, do you have any other questions?
I was wondering, as far as the safety goes, that side of the street has been prohibited from parking because of the dangers. There's been multiple accidents, and they should have a red light. It's known as the shortcut on Walnut Street to get into Lynn. So there's cars going by that are very rapid speed, and they should have a stop light at the corner of Grove, possibly, to avoid having people collide with the two houses backing out into the street and with the people going at a rapid speed to get downtown, since it's on GPS now as a shortcut to the city of Lynn.
There is a traffic control commission that regulates parking, one-way signs, stop signs, traffic signals. That's not the Board of Appeals. What the Board of Appeals regulates is the number of required spaces, the design standards, and those may well be legitimate concerns that existed prior to the proposal to build a dwelling at this site. As far as on-street parking, we don't propose any on-street parking. We meet the requirement for off-street parking, which would be 3 spaces. We show 4 off-street. The 4 that we show off-street satisfy the zone ordinance.
Okay. Thank you. We have had the hearing open for comments in opposition. We haven't had anyone contact us to speak in opposition. So, hearing none, if there's anyone else that has any opposition to the variance, we'll give you another minute to call in, and then we'll we'll see what the board wants to do. So you got about another minute to call on.
Motion to deny.
Okay,
Motion to deny.
we're going to give them another minute, Mr. Callen, and then we'll take motions. Okay, hearing no one else in opposition, I'll close the hearing for that portion. And what is the wish of the board?
Motion to deny.
We have a motion to deny.
I'll second.
And who is the second?
I did.
Terry?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, no. That's right, okay, yes. Terry, you and Danya are on this one. So we have a motion to deny, and it's been seconded. Mary, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Smith? To
No.
deny? No? Okay. Mrs. Crowitz to deny?
Yes, to deny.
Mrs. Curley to deny?
Deny.
Mr. Callen to deny?
Yes to deny.
Mr. Wood to deny?
Yes to deny. Okay, so the motion was denied, 4-1. Thank you, everyone. So that concludes our business tonight, unless anyone has
We
anything
have
else to
a,
say.
Mr. Chairman, we have a case on Essex Street.
Oh, I'm sorry. We do have one more case. Jeez. Thank
Yeah, they
you.
had a change in the floor plans.
Yes, right. Okay, yes, I'm sorry about that. Okay,
Which
so
is
on
good,
this
yeah.
case, we have Son and Flory sitting in again. And this is case number 9967, 321 Essex Street. This was continued to this week. Once again, provision to vary the provisions of the Lynn zoning ordinance to allow the addition of a residential unit on the first floor of a pre-existing non-conforming mixed-use structure. And so this is by Attorney Vitale again. So I'll open the hearing, and those in favor. Attorney Vitale, why don't you go ahead?
I think that the last hearing we went over, but I'll briefly spend the time again. The Board of Appeals approved some years ago the construction of this building. It was a mixed-use building, and it allowed commercial space on the first floor and 2 apartments on the second floor. This was approved by the Board of Appeals, I believe, in 2003. Thereafter, the building was constructed. There's a nail salon on the first floor and 2 apartments, each with 2 bedrooms on the second floor. Sam Che is here near with me. He's a member of the service. He serves in the Coast Guard. He lives there with his mother, Tina, and his sister. And he was seeking a VA loan with respect to acquiring the property from his mother. He did not know whether the VA would approve a property that had a commercial portion and a residential portion. He has found out, fortunately, that the VA will, in fact, approve such a loan. And what they now propose to do is he and his mother and sister would move to an apartment that they would construct adjoining the existing nail salon, which is the commercial space, and that would be a new 2-bedroom virtually the same as the one above it on the second floor. And then he and his mother would move there and refinance with his ability as a member of the service to get a VA loan. But because the property had previously been approved for 2 residential apartments and commercial on the first floor, we came before the board in 2002. The board allowed the construction of a 2-unit apartment and retail space on a 9,677 square foot lot with off-street parking having less than the required setbacks from property lines. That was a case number 8826 of the board. It was approved unanimously. With the addition of a 3rd apartment, there would be a requirement for 5 on-site parking spaces with respect to the residential use. And the remaining portion of the first floor being commercial of approximately 900 to 1,000 square feet. We've allocated an additional 5 spaces for the nail salon, so that the plan that is before you shows the existing building, its footprint, and the proposal to satisfy the parking requirement. It does take advantage of the previously granted approval by the board to park within the so-called 5-foot buffer. And I think the reason we came back to you, and I think we had delivered to you, and Sam's here and we can hold up, but we had a plan done that shows the layout of the proposed new apartment. It was done by an architect, Jim Starrett, and it sort of replicates the plan that was filed when the building was built for the apartments that are above. So essentially what we're asking you to do is to allow the additional apartment to be constructed on the first floor, consistent with what the plan is that Mr. Starrett has prepared. It would be a 2-bedroom apartment. As I say, the property is currently owner-occupied. It's been owner-occupied since it's been constructed, and I think you got, what, 2 more years before you're out of the service?
Yes.
So he's got 18 years in, he's got 2 years to go, and this is where he would reside, does reside, and the request to the board is to allow this additional residential unit rather than have the entire first floor of the building as it was approved in the past be commercial space.
Okay, thank you, Sam. Does anyone have any questions? I know that I had some questions about the footprint of the layout of the building, and I appreciate the plans that were delivered, so they pretty much answered my questions. Anyone else have any questions, or anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, I kind of held this over, with requested that they have a new plan showing 2 proper means of egress. They hired a great architect, Mr. Starrett, and he shows 2 means of egress so that people wouldn't get trapped in there. I'm in favor of this layout. So.
Okay, thank you. I saw those egresses too. That was important to put those in. Is any other questions by the board, or does anyone in the public wish to speak in favor of this petition? Actually, we already did all that part before, right? So I guess if anyone has any questions in general. So hearing none, what is the wish of the board?
Granted.
I'll second it.
Okay, we've got a motion to grant from Mr. Callahan, seconded. Was that Lori?
Yes, that was me.
Yeah, Ms. McClure. Okay, Mary, can you call the roll?
Mr. McClure,
Yes to grant.
Mr. Wooten,
Yes to grant.
Mrs. Curley,
Yes to grant.
Mr. Callen,
Yes, to grant.
Mr. Wood.
Yes to grant. All right,
Thank you.
Thank you.
congratulations. Okay, so any other
Motion to adjourn. We have no more business.
No more business? Okay, everyone, gonna get a second on that?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Thanks, Gene.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, all.
Good
Good night.
All right, take
Thank you,
care, all.
Mr. Wu.